This is Only the Strong Survive, a podcast powered by Kahn Media, where we dive deep into the world of business, leadership, and innovation. I'm your host, Dan Kahn, and I'm honored to have you join us today. So, let's get ready to learn some survival skills together. Hey everybody, welcome back to Only the Strong Survive. I'm your host, Dan Kahn. Today's guest is someone who has actually been on the show before, Lance Gillies, the founder of EarthCruiser. If you know anything about overlanding or the RV market, you know that EarthCruiser has been a leader in the space for many years. They really kind of innovated some extreme adventure vehicles at the very beginning of the overlanding movement. But a lot has changed since the last time we talked to Lance. Shortly after we had him on the show last time, EarthCruiser actually shut down its U.S. manufacturing and delivered its final EXP vehicle. And for a while, it looked like that might be the end of the road. Turns out it wasn't. I'm really excited to say that Lance is back with a new vision for his company, a new business model, and a renewed focus on innovation and community. So we asked him to come back on and share the story of what happened, what he learned from it, and where he's going, and where EarthCruiser is headed next. So I just want to get straight into it. So welcome back to Lance, and glad you could join us. Lance, welcome back to the show.
Mate, really appreciate you spending some more time with us. I really do.
Absolutely. So for those who haven't heard your first episode, give us the 5-minute recap of your story about the whole concept of EarthCruiser and how you made it to America and all that. Because that in itself is a pretty incredible story.
I'll try to be as brief as succinct as possible. I come from Australia, and my wife and I, we love to travel. Michelle and I actually met in a Malaysian jungle in an off-road competition in a Malaysian jungle a long time ago. We're on competing sides. Sets the stage for a little bit, the sort of stuff that we like to do, wandering through a lovely jungle with wonderful people. Anyway, so fast forward a little while, we'd had a successful business in Australia that we'd sold, and we wanted to do some more traveling. We couldn't find a vehicle that we liked to travel in, so we created one. We called it an EarthCruiser, and it grew from there. Not long after we started the company, Michelle needed to spend some time with her folks in the United States, and so we moved to the US. And I used to commute backwards and forwards between the US and Australia, keeping the EarthCruiser factory going in Australia. So it's been a very interesting time. I mean, when we first came here, there was no such thing as overlanding. It was definitely a word. There was some movement in that direction, but it was certainly not what it is now. I was always curious that flying over the US as much as we did and driving around a little bit, how much open land there was, but people didn't feel like there was anywhere to go. I couldn't actually really understand that at the time. So somebody heard that I was in the US and they said, would I build an EarthCruiser for them? And I said, yep, sure. And so we built a chassis from the US, sent it back to Australia, built an EarthCruiser, brought it over here, and someone saw it, and that's actually where it just started to snowball from there, quite literally. The whole experience was interesting, putting the steering wheel on the other side of the truck and all of that stuff that we had to get our head around. Hiring people, what's it like to have a business here? What are the rules, rules of the road, engineering standards, all of that sort of stuff. We didn't know anything. I mean, absolutely zero, not a single thing. The reason we ended up in Bend was very simple, is that Portland is a beautiful town, as everybody knows, but it rains a fair bit there, which is where Michelle's folks were. It was just an agreement with the folks. What's a good driving time, which we agreed was 4 hours. And so we got a map, piece of string, did a circle, 4-hour driving time, lined up in Bend, had no idea where Bend was, never been here before, didn't know anybody, drive over the mountain, first time stood on snow. And we arrived in Bend when we just started to door knock on people and said, listen, we're thinking about building this thing called an EarthCruiser. I've got some business cards made up with a picture on it. So think about making some here in Bend. Most people that were absolutely crazy, and they were probably right. We just started. Somebody overheard me talking to a mate in Australia. I was probably having a coffee or beer somewhere and said, you're trying to hire some people? I said, yep. Oh, well, I know somebody. And it just went from there. And I don't know where it come from, and I know this is not really what you're asking, but Bend has got this lovely culture of entrepreneurialism and helping people start their journey. And it's really terrific, whether it be a pub talk, whether it be an outdoor alliance, all sorts of stuff. And now the local university is starting a program as well. So it's a great little, let's call it an incubator spot. So unbeknownst to us, we probably landed in exactly the right place where we needed to be at the time.
Yeah, I love Bend. We were on a cross-country road trip all through the Northwest, and we were only supposed to spend one day there. We ended up spending a week there, and my son still talks about Bend constantly. Like there is something about the vibe there that it is sort of entrepreneurial and kind of free-spirited, but not in the Portland way, like in its own way, kind of a more outdoorsy, kind of rugged way. It's interesting.
It is good, and full credit to people for keeping that going. You don't get that atmosphere and, as you said, a feeling that you take with you in a town the size of Bend without people working at it. And who are they is really hard for me to answer. It was at the very beginning, and it is doubly now very, very important to us as a tiny company and personally that we have a responsibility as the way we've always felt to do what we can to keep that going. As what's happened with us over the last 12 months, which I do want to talk about a little bit, I'd just really love to get your views on it, actually. When we're ready, I will call us fairly entrepreneurial. We like to be very innovative. We just like that. We gather those kind of people around us. But when there becomes a major change in an industry where it moves from the early adopters and as I don't know if it's a product cycle, I don't know if it's just a change, that starts to break apart. And when that breaks apart or changes, what happens? And it's been gut-wrenching, absolutely horrible, but in other ways really rewarding to see things start to unfold.
Well, for those who don't know, because you're leading into something, and for those who don't know what we're talking about, let's hit pause for a second because I want to get into that. Just to kind of finish up our sort of recap, I think the vehicle you guys are probably, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the one you're probably the most well known for is the EXP, right? That's sort of the big Mitsubishi chassis. And for those who are listening, if you don't know what I'm talking about, you can Google EarthCruiser EXP, but it looks like a Australian market or European market commercial truck, like a semi-truck from Europe kind of thing, but with a big box on the back. So it's designed for, I guess, you can explain what that was. Like go all the way down as, Belize or the tip of South America or go across the outback. It's kind of a self-contained adventure vehicle, right?
Yeah, no, sorry. Now I've skipped over some important details there. So one super important detail is Australia living on a great big island. We wanted to build a vehicle that could fit in the shipping container that had a comfortable bed, comfortable living quarters, had enough water, Obviously, had to be a really good off-road vehicle. A Land Cruiser and Nissan Patrol doesn't cut the mustard. They can't carry enough weight. And when I say weight, your critical things are water and fuel. You can minimize everything else, but those two things, they're going to decide how far you're going and how long you're staying. And so there wasn't really a typical, like I said, Toyota that would do what we wanted it to do. Anyway, we've had plenty of Toyotas and all that, but they couldn't really do what we wanted it to do, inside bathroom, all that. And so that's where the light commercial trucks come in. The Fuso truck, although it's not available in the US anymore, but they are sold as a four-drive vehicle in roughly 75 countries. And Isuzu is roughly the same. So to put it in perspective, they may look big, but they're actually no more than 22 feet long max. If we use the EXP house, I'll drive straight into a shipping container. We've been fortunate that we've been able to take ours and we've taken it over to Europe and to Africa and spent a little bit of time in Asia. And it's very, very simple. Pop it in a container, the boat takes it to the other continent for you, and you drive it out of that container and you've got everything you need. And it's a phenomenal way to travel. Even if you're not going to do the big overseas stuff, just having a smaller, compact vehicle made a lot of sense. And that was an interesting thing for us to talk around with clients or to be clients in the US is that typically bigger is better. And it's taken a little while for people to go, well, not always. I mean, sometimes it's, bigger is better sometimes, but for the majority of the people, the livability factor was just so important. How many Sprinter vans do we see nowadays? All that sort of stuff. But we were long before that. There wasn't the van life thing going on when we started to do our thing in the very beginning. An EarthCruiser EXV is very much the way I describe it is a designed for, not modified to. So from the very beginning, everything about it is designed for travel. It has no other purpose. It was all it knows how to do, and it doesn't care where it does it. So as you said, you can be in Belize or you could be in Fez in Morocco. It doesn't matter. It's just as happy. Doesn't make any difference to that.
And I remember from our last chat that, the concept was something that kind of perfectly fits inside of a shipping container. And that is a brilliant model. Shortly after we chatted a year or so ago, maybe I don't remember actually exactly the date. I bet you probably do, but not our conversation, but the stuff that came after. It wasn't terribly long after, maybe a month or two after we had our last conversation. You put up a post on LinkedIn, among other places, that was incredibly honest and transparent. And I think it was about the time you were delivering number 107. Can you tell the listeners sort of what was going on and what happened?
Definitely. So there's always more to the story, but in a nutshell, business hat, not entrepreneur hat, not innovators hat for a minute, as things had changed, right? So Bend, phenomenal place, as I said, really good incubator place. But for a small privately held company like ours, it was very difficult to start to compete now in what now become a nationwide industry. in the very beginning, EarthCruiser really didn't have any competition. So it was okay. It was all right. As the industry, the overland, some people call it off-grid, but essentially extended travel by vehicle market has grown exponentially. We found not that we just had more competition, we had different competition. And so for us to compete, not just globally, because we exported a lot of vehicles, for us to compete nationally was becoming untenable because Bend the Gate, again, phenomenal place, but for a privately held company, for us to build a big factory and get economies of scale for things to start to work, we just couldn't figure it out. Rather than being able to expand into the market, we were finding ourselves having to shrink so we can concentrate on a few things while we're watching a market that we helped create expand exponentially. And so that's not really the way my mind works, is that, we really want to keep going. We don't want to go backwards. We want to keep going. We were really struggling how to do that. Release the Hummer, not long before that, with that great thing with the GMC, and we were starting to line all these things up. But what started to happen around us was our small suppliers that we had helped and they had helped us bring up our supply chain. They were starting to either close their businesses or dramatically reduce their ability to supply us. And so we had two colliding things happening where, yes, the RV market was doing its weird thing, but more than that, our ability to become more and more efficient was getting harder and harder because we had less choices of how we could produce things. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So to back up for just a second. So for those listening, I think one of the things that we should note here is that a lot of markets, outdoor recreation, automotive aftermarket, but more than probably any other market that I know of, the RV market was the most extreme example of COVID hits, numbers completely zero out, manufacturers panic, dealers panic. We were working with a travel trailer company at the time, and they went into full-blown panic mode. Everything goes to zero. And then all of a sudden, as soon as people figured out, this lockdown is going to last a while, and I really need to get out. And then all of a sudden, sales just explode. And these dealers are just demanding product at an unprecedented rate. Factories are running 2 and 3 shifts. And this is, I have more knowledge of the Indiana guys, where the kind of the fiberglass boxes on wheels. I know your business is a little different, but in general, that market, and jump in here if I'm getting this wrong, but then all of a sudden things are insane, and they're producing as much as they can. And I know some of the OEMs were expanding their factory footprints. In my head at the time, I'm thinking this doesn't seem like it's permanent. I'm not sure you should do this much with CapEx, but okay. And they're just pouring resources into scaling as fast as they can. And then the lockdown is over. And all of a sudden things kind of leveled off, and then interest rates start going up due to other reasons. And all of a sudden there's this correction, and the whole industry again, so it's in this crazy roller coaster, right? So I assume there was some of that affected you guys as well, right? Kind of the ups and downs.
You explain it better than I did. COVID pushed a big green go button for this style of travel to be exposed to way more people. As you said, you get the big guys, you get the medium-sized guys going, well, if we put some solar panels on this and we call it an off-grid, off-road thing, all of a sudden, the competition for what was a relatively small, well, still is relatively small, but people knew what they went looking for, just exploded. And we were in no position to take advantage of that at all. As you said, we couldn't hire people. We had to close our factory.
Okay, so that was what I was trying to understand the Bend angle of the challenge. So was it that basically you had sort of a limited pool of potential labor, and you
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Because Bend is an amazing place, but it is kind of isolated. It's not super close to anything. So you hit sort of a governor of how fast you could grow. And I guess to your point, when you started this business, you made something that was very unique. I think continues to be unique in my opinion, but there has been a massive wave of these kind of sprinter guys that have come out now that are sort of making, essentially it's kind of a box on wheels with solar. So I guess in that way, it's sort of similar. In a lot of ways, it's not. But I guess it is competition. So you have more competition. You have the limited ability to scale because of labor. How did the supply chain play into all this? Because it sounds like that was some sort of a challenge as well.
It wasn't our unique challenge. Everybody had it. But
I see. Okay.
Yeah, for sure. Tires, good luck trying to get tires. Trying to get a chassis, good luck trying to get a chassis. Where once our local dealer could say, yep, you need a truck, no worries, we'll just put you on a nice, easy, manageable ordering program. They said, listen, we're getting pressure from the manufacturers. You take these 10 trucks right now, or you're not going to get another truck. That's it.
Is that because other manufacturers were trying to buy them too?
They were having supply chain dramas. They needed to, the big the manufacturers, they had businesses to run. They needed to get stuff out the door. And if they could get a truck finished and sold, they're going to sell it. And it was very much crazy times, and it's still ricocheting, I think.
So as you're closing in on kind of number 107 in your production line and you're realizing, hey, there's some real hills to climb here, what did that look like? Was it, hey, we can't grow, or this isn't as profitable as it need to be? Like, what was the thing that was keeping you up at night?
Lots of things, but the key one is that we couldn't see a way out of this. We were trying to figure out just what to do. When you don't know what to do and you're used to knowing what to do and now you don't know what to do, that's a very, very lonely place. And we definitely took some bad advice, but I took the advice, so there's no dodging that. We either just completely wipe this thing out and people don't get their trucks, or we figure out a way for people to get their trucks on order. We just figured out a way to get their trucks that wanted to stay on order. Some people chose not to. They didn't want to get their trucks finished, which is understandable, I guess. I preferred they did.
So were you looking at sort of the orders that were on the books, and it was looking like the sort of delivery timeline was getting drawn out further? Is that part of what was happening?
Or they just wouldn't get them. We were just going to have to say, sorry, we're going to fold up our tent, and that's just too bad. We just didn't want to do that. We thought we just have to find a way to get these trucks finished and keep our promise to our customers. We just have to find a way. We found a way, but it's comes at a cost. But we found a way.
So anyone who wanted to keep their deposit in, wanted to keep their order on the books, they got their rig.
Exactly.
Oh, that in itself is admirable. So then as you're wrapping up those final orders, what happened? Because I remember your post, and I remember sort of being, it was like a bomb went off. I'm like, wait a second, what's happening over there?
So coming back to our original challenge is that if we wanted to stay in Bend, could we have a sustainable business in Bend doing what EarthCruiser did? And the answer is no. Maybe somebody else could, but it's clearly beyond my level of capability. Could we have a sustainable production of EarthCruiser somewhere else? For sure. And now I think that the market has started to meet a company like ours with our range of products. There's enough of a market there for scalability. It's real. Sustained interest, and that sustained customer will be there for the foreseeable future. As I said, focus was getting those trucks finished, keep a promise, and then what do we do next? And so we are partnering with some other larger manufacturers to build EarthCruiser houses for us. We will have those houses finished by other small companies just like us all over the US. The way I think about it, I want to reimagine what a recreational vehicle manufacturing company can be. And I've thought a lot about this. What is it that those small van conversion companies, they're little companies just like us, we know they're well. We may not know them personally, but we understand them. You bring apprentices up through your ranks to teach them everything, and then you want to keep them. You've spent a lot of time with those people and you really like them as part of your crew, your employees, and all of that small business manufacturing stuff. I mean, we've been through the ringer on that. So I thought, well, we have learnt a lot. And more than just the building vehicles, more than just the overland market itself, very well how to participate in that, in the very good times and the very bad times. I thought to myself, I wonder if we can't kill two birds with one stone. If we can't relook or change our operations of EarthCruiser, where we're not centralizing things like we were, expanding the brand EarthCruiser, extending the ability for people to purchase one, but at the same time using what we know this might sound conceited, but it's just not the way I feel about it at all. Why not help other little companies just like us? Why not do that? Why can't we all do that? It's actually really, really exciting. It's not something that we could have even considered when we were tearing our hair out, trying to figure out where we're going to get our next meal from. It's been very difficult, but it's kind of really interesting when these dramatic shifts change, and when we did have to close our little company, manufacturing company here, and all of the heartbreak that went through that, how do we use that not just to our advantage, but to others? How do we do that? Rather it just be a complete train wreck and a just misery, how do we go, well, no, maybe there's a better way? And that's very much what I'm focused on right now.
So when you made the decision to sort of take a pause, was there a bankruptcy, or was it
No,
just sort
we
of...
haven't. We've closed the company. We didn't go bankrupt. But we closed the company. It's still ongoing, and we still got things to deal with. Don't get me wrong. I'm not hiding behind a tree here. No, we didn't specifically, because if we would have done that, those people in line to get their trucks. So they would be the first ones to get hurt. They would be all completely unsecured.
So you hit pause, didn't do a filing or anything, helped sort of outsource what you had to outsource, complete all your builds that were on order. How many people kind of before all this at your peak, how many people were working for you in Bend?
At the most was 70.
70. Wow, that's a lot of people. I assume you did some sort of reduction in force as a result of it?
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
That must have been very challenging.
It was horrible. Because you employ people, you talk to a lot of people. Culture of an organization is why you go there, right? And everybody said it. When you walked into EarthCruiser factory, it was just alive. People wanted to be there, and it was wonderful. It still hurts. It still absolutely hurts. And it's interesting because as a business owner and, someone who started it, and you'd feel this way too. It's not what you are, it's who you are. I don't know how to explain it any better than that. It does you damage because you're truly passionate about that. And if this is really what you want to do, you're going to put everything you have plus some into it. When you are no longer that, that's really hard. What has been very gratifying, and I take no responsibility for their success, but I am very thrilled that many of our crew, some post us closing the factory, a few prior, started their own companies doing mostly in the outdoor world, some not, but most in the outdoor world, and they're thriving. And it's fabulous. It is absolutely fabulous. Again, I don't take responsibility for their success, but I will say, and I think they would agree, working with a small company that is very engaged and gives people a chance to make a mistake and just get exposed to everything does you a lot of good and set you as a foundation for when it comes time for you to do your own thing. That, I think, is one of the nicest things about having a small business. You get opportunities to present others with opportunities more so than you would if you worked in a corporate world, I would think. You can say, look, that person, they just need a few edges knocked off them and they're going to be really good at this. So let's just give them a chance. You know what I mean? That's really gratifying.
I love that. And I completely relate to it. It took me a while to understand because, we'd go to social situations, parties or whatever. And I would always ask people I haven't seen in a while, acquaintances, like, oh, how's work? And my wife finally said to me after years of that, she said, why do you always ask everybody how work is? And I didn't even understand her question. And I'm like, why do you mean? Why? Is that weird? She's like, yeah, people don't want to talk about work when they're not at work. They don't like work. Like, you're the only one who likes talking about work. And what finally dawned on me was, if you're an entrepreneur that's made it past the 5-year mark, you have to kind of treat your business like it's your kid. And like, you have to sort of be in it and thinking about it and living and breathing it every day. And it becomes just like you said, like a part of you. So to me, if somebody were to engage with me in a social setting and not ask how work is, I would probably bring it up anyway, because that's such a huge part of who I am. And I try to have work-life balance, but I spend every waking minute thinking about either my wife, my kids, or my company. Like, that's sort of all I do all day. There is something about that it becomes ingrained in you. And I imagine that kind of what you went through must have been an incredible, like almost like a grieving process, like a loss.
It is still ongoing. We are absolutely determined we're going to make this thing the best thing that happened. We are absolutely determined because it is about choices. And I have been very fortunate. I've never been much of a depressed person ever in my life, ever. But I think I know what depression is now. And I never recognized it before, but I do now. And it's awful. I'm the person that gets out of bed at 5 o'clock in the morning and I just can't wait to do whatever I'm going to do. I found myself sleeping in because there was no reason. The feeling of importance, I humbly believe, is one of the most important human drivers, to be important, to be
needed.
To be known. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And when that is not that anymore, and when part of what you have done for a long time is impart that into others and you're not able to be useful, that is just tragedy. That's horrible. Now that I've experienced that, I can promise you I will never let that ever happen again.
So how long from when you sort of completed the last of the EXPs did it take? Were you also working on the next phase in real time?
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely.
And tell us what that is. Tell us all about it.
Okay. Again, so we went from a team to now it's just Michelle and I basically, which is great. Well, not great, but she hates it sometimes. I can be a bit intense. My humble belief is that the overlanding and the way of traveling like this is just wonderful. We've said it before, and it's so true. One night in EarthCruiser will change your life. It just will. You'll just go, goodness me, there's really nothing stopping me outside of me. And that's really the way we felt about it. We have partnered with some large fiberglass manufacturers who are, all they want is scale, and they can do it. They're They normally do a lot of stuff for automotive. Of course, when there's a bit of a downturn, there's always opportunity, right? So we're trying to work with that. And so they will produce the EarthCruiser shells for us, and we will partnering with small companies all over the US, actually, that will build them out for customers. So we will change what we do from being a direct-to-consumer business model, where now we are definitely business to business, but what we can bring to the party is that heritage of EarthCruiser. So we're not just a component supplier that just walked out of the trees. We've got a lot of experience in how to get other companies who want to be involved in this overlanding world up to speed quickly and introduce them to tons of customers. It's actually really exciting. The way we see it is that we'll be not just a manufacturing partner, but very much that marketing partner where we're not going to do what you guys do, of course, but it's how to talk to these people. Who is this new customer and how do we address them? What is it that we can do for them that we can do better than anybody else? And we feel that we can bring that to the table.
It sounds like, I think they're called the Mod and the Terra Nova. Is that right?
Yeah, we're going to start with them.
I assume you're doing sort of the design work and the engineering, and then you've got a partner that's doing the production. I assume it's not just like a fiberglass topper. I'm guessing you've got a lot of stuff kind of baked in there. What are they exactly?
One thing that we were very heavy on with our little company was engineering. We never made anything custom. Everything was production. So when it comes to production instructions and detailed drawings and all the rest of it, that's pretty much there. So we can hand a package to an outfitter van builder and say, would you like to build Terra Nova? A fun fact is that 7 out of every 10 of our Terra Nova customers, we built a lot of Terra Novas, had a van conversion first. We can say to a van conversion company, don't stop what you're doing with your van customers. Of course, we're not saying stop that. What we're saying is now you have one more menu item that you can offer your existing customers. They are normally direct to consumer, not always, but mostly. Once they have built up a great relationship with their van customer, they may not see that customer again for years or never see them again. And so now they can have more opportunity to say, listen, if the van is not working for you anymore, for whatever reason, whatever it is, we'll make another one. That's wonderful. But if circumstances change and a van isn't going to be suitable, how about we build you a Terra Nova? And so we can provide them, or we're providing them with a complete Terra Nova outside shell. The lock-up stage, the roof goes up and down, and it goes on the back of typically an F-350 or a Ram. We can say, here's the build packet to build it out, the inside of it the way we used to do it. That's all the information's here, wiring, limbs, etc. Or we can say, it's up to you. If you've got your way of doing things and you want to build it the way you've trained your people, the way that you want to use a power system that you're used to. It's hubris for us to say that we're better than everybody else. That's nuts. What we are good at is being recognized as an EarthCruiser. And each of these small companies, just like that, they've had to earn the respect of their customers, and they know how to take care of their customers. And so we don't want to say, you've got to do it the way we've always done it, because that's nuts, because the way we've done it may not suit their customers, because they possibly would have been our customers if they were. So we're very much rethinking how this needs to be. So our thinking and our way of doing things is we will keep a operation in Bend. This is where we'll produce the new products. So we're starting with the sliding truck camper, which goes in the back as a Tacoma. We've got various models, go for pretty much any pickup truck in America. We've got a sliding camper for. Same deal. Outside completed. And if you want, here's the kit to build it on the inside if you want to, or you build it the way you want to for your customers. So we're starting this the slide-in, which will be around 20 grand, and the Terra Nova pricing is still coming together, but it's going to be very, very, very competitive. So we're starting there. We've been working on a trailer for quite some time. Same deal. And so we can rethink what a RV manufacturing and distribution can look like. In my mind's eye, we have builders all over the country that aren't just reselling stuff. They're actually building it and caring about their customer. The distribution question becomes very different now. And the service questions becomes very different now. And how do I get warranty questions becomes very different now, because the consumer will be able to go back to the person that built it and say, look, you built me this terrific trailer and I love it, but this rivet's squeaky. Can you fix that for me? And by the way, can I have an extra awning? You know what I mean? Just change it. It does some things that are very close to my heart. And that is small town manufacturing provides a lot of opportunities for school kids to go and have a sweep a floor for a little while. They get some real hands-on, whether it be a marketing intern, go, look, I might want to be in the marketing, and a small company go, great, we need some social media help. Do you want to have a look at doing this? Small companies provide so much opportunity for people just to start to learn the ropes and go, okay, I really want to go into media now because I've had a chance to see what it looks like and I love it. It's a start. Small companies give, humble opinion, kids the chance to learn the difference between going to school, learning to go to school, and learning to go to work. And small companies do it better than anybody because generally speaking, the owners of the companies are there, they care, and they're as committed to their community as anybody, coming back to that earlier why talk about work. And so if we can find a way, we can change what EarthCruiser looks like, not physically looks like, but change what EarthCruiser looks like in the broader sense. We can get more EarthCruisers in the hands of more people. I can happily be driven and passionate about supporting small businesses just like ours and supporting the kids and supporting the local universities. That is something that I have no trouble jumping out of bed at 4:30 in the morning about and going, all right, let's do this.
Yeah, a mission-driven life. I completely understand that. So I'm curious. So if it's not D2C, are they upfitters that are like who is the target? I assume it's not like major volume manufacturers. Are these retailers? Are they sort of small upfitter shops? Who's going to do these completions around the country?
The people who have been contacting us, and we've contacted some, is that we have some who are just literally just one guy. And we've got other people who've got roughly 18. So the sweet spot seems to be between 8 to 12 employees. That's the sweet spot. So their typical business is typically upfitting vans. That's the main thing that they've been doing. They're all over the United States and Canada. They're everywhere.
I've seen them. I've seen, like you said, small businesses with a dozen employees. I've seen like a guy who's a cabinet maker who's just doing woodwork and building out the inside of sprinters. So
doing a beautiful job. And they have a challenge where every sprinter on the outside looks exactly the same. Till you open the door, that's the first time you get to appreciate their work, right? From the outside. Whereas an EarthCruiser, you look at an EarthCruiser and go, that's an EarthCruiser. And so we can bring that to the table more than anything else, is that it's a recognizable, distinct shape that's got a heritage, and it's a reason it's the shape it is. We can go into all of that sort of stuff some other day, but it gives them a distinct visual market difference that you don't have to ask. You just know it's different. And so we're having some partners, they're going to put them into rental fleets. Some of our partners are going to sell them through a more small traditional. So far, it's feeling really good.
So I love the pivot. One of my questions, I guess, is assuming these, like you said, they're aesthetically identifiable as an EarthCruiser. I assume they'll be branded. Questions I guess I would have is, so for a long time, years ago, we haven't worked with them in probably close to a decade now, but years ago, we worked with a pretty well-known, fairly high-volume Cobra kind of kit car, not a kit car, they hate being called that, but like a reproduction manufacturer. And, the cars would come like 80% complete, and a lot of customers would have a professional shop do the final completion with the drivetrain and some details. But a guy would do it himself sometimes. And the challenge I would observe on that business model was the ones that went to the relatively high volume shops that have 6, 10 employees, they turned out a pretty consistent, high quality product. The ones that some guy built at home, you didn't know what you were going to get. And sometimes they were really good and sometimes not so good. And so I think the market generally has embraced those over the years. I mean, I actually owned one and sold it and did pretty well with it. But there was always a lot of extra scrutiny because they're like, well, who built it? And I want to take a look at this to make sure this thing, was done correctly. How do you control the quality output so that if your name is on the side of it, you know that it's not going to have issues down the line?
The key here is that partnership with the builders, because it's going to have their name on it too. I can see that, I would want to buy, if I couldn't buy a secondhand original EarthCruiser, I would want to buy one from this particular guy because we really like the way he's been doing it. And so the second part of this is I envisage let's call it fairly interactive way of doing it. I envisage visiting these builders, interviewing these builders, recording these builders, their way of building will be on a spot on our website. So you can go, right, let's say 5 people building Terranovas, and they may have different price points. And you can go, no, I really like the way this guy does it because now I've seen his work. Lance has talked to him. You know what I mean? I feel I know them now. In our current world, we have tools at our fingertips to be able to bring that builder's expertise to somebody's laptop pretty easily. We have a viable model where we are supporting that builder, we are educating our customer, and we are improving our industry all at the same time. We've been around long enough that we can ask the right questions, and we have enough credibility, I believe, to say, we don't care how shiny it is, I am going to ask what grade nuts and bolts there are, and I am going to know if it's supposed to be that way, and I am going to do it respectfully, and we are going to be fussy about it. So to answer your question, it's not let's just sell it to them and just hope for the best. No. This is a real engagement, and I think we all win that way. And I think, rightly or wrongly, the RV industry has not done itself any favors with build quality. Everybody hears it all the time. Not want to taking a misadventure with that, but I am saying that people are smart enough now. They do want to know, sometimes how the sausage is made. I think there's a real opportunity there. I don't see anybody really doing that, but we want to. And I absolutely see as a partnership where we can be very actively promoting these builders in an intelligent way.
I love that. So it's EarthCruiser by so-and-so, and you're going to help educate the builder, but also it's up to the consumer to know, okay, this builder does these things that align with what I'm looking for, or I like that's great. That's really interesting. So tell me about tag-along training tours. Like, what is that and how does that work into the whole thing?
That's just because we just love to travel. Tag-alongs are really popular in Australia. I don't think they're as popular in the US yet, but they will be. So you get created travel trips where everything's just all lined out for you. That's not what a tag-along is. A tag-along tour says Lance and Michelle, and we're going to drive to Alaska, and anybody who wants to come with us with a maximum of 6 people, you're welcome to join. No more than that. No guarantees it's going to be great. No guarantees. Just come on. It's great fun. We want to develop that a lot. And I see it as a beautiful segue into making sure that the people who are buying EarthCruiser products from these other builders, we've got existing companies, of course, but we want them to do that tag along because nothing brings our community together. People learn about their products faster. It's just better. It's just what it's supposed to be. This way of traveling isn't supposed to be just for some small clique of people. People have been traveling around on camels forever because travel just does you good. I mean, you know that. It just does.
Travel's education. That's true. Well, and I would assume in the process of doing these tag-alongs, you're also building ambassadors organically, or these people, by the time they've spent time with you, they get the vision, they understand who you are, they understand kind of the why behind the whole thing, and they sort of get the bug.
Yep.
They're going to go tell all their friends how great it is. And
exactly.
That helps, right?
It does hugely.
So how important is that real-world experience to a company like yours? And do you think other brands kind of overlook that part? Or because I don't hear much about other brands doing anything like that.
People don't care what you do. They care about why you did it. I think it's critical. I really, really do. There's very, very specific reasons we build EarthCruisers the way we built them. I can bore you to tears, but it's very specific. And they may not look obvious when it's parked on the side of the road, but when it's in the environment for which it was created, it just makes sense. And it can only make sense because of the experience. And, the old story, right? You learn by bad experiences, not good ones. And so I would call it lived experience. I think it's absolutely critical. I think it will be very difficult from a dealer perspective. Curious how this is going to play out for the large RV manufacturers getting more and more involved in off-grid overland things, right? How effective can they communicate critical features of that vehicle, if it's a trailer or whatever it is, through a sales channel if they don't have the experience to do that? How do you do it from an engineering production line, bottom line, cost-driven? How do you do that? I think that'd be extremely difficult to get that all the way to the end consumer to make sure they've got the right product and they're going to get the experience they've got in their mind's eye. How do you do that without disappointing people? How do you do that if you haven't got that lived experience? I don't know. I think it'd be extraordinarily difficult. What do you think? I mean, I just think it'd be really hard. I don't think it's impossible. It'd be hard.
Well, I think, unfortunately, I think there's a few things that are happening in parallel right now. The collapse of the sort of traditional enthusiast media model is challenging. Because I think for a long time, whether, if you were a company that made fly rods or overland RVs or tents or sneakers or whatever it is you're into, for a long time, there were dedicated media channels that, if you were a fly rod manufacturer, even if you were just one guy in a shop making bamboo rods, or you're some giant mega corporation manufacturing in China, whatever, you could invite a bunch of journalists over to an event. You could show them all your new product. You go to a trade show. Everyone's going to cover your new stuff. There's a pipeline directly to that consumer. That's gone for the most part kind of away. And now there's all these sort of independent like creators and influencers, but they're all sort of like one-man bands. And it puts a lot more onus on the consumer to have to go look for the content that is sort of interesting and sort of fits the subject matter they want to pursue. And I think that's a mixed bag, because because on one hand, it puts really the onus on the brand to have to work even harder to show that they're authentic. And at the same time, I think it's also made it easier to fake it. Like anyone can go in and start making a product and say, hey, I'm going to serve this market now. And and on the automotive aftermarket side, for example, there was a period of time where one of our clients has been a chemical company that makes car care products, and it's a family-owned company. They're their fourth generation now. They've been in business for 70 years, running out of the same factory in Ohio. That authenticity is real. But all of a sudden, over the last decade, anyone with an idea and a logo can go to a blending and bottling facility and say, I want to be in this business, and boom, you're in business making car care product. And then you can say you're authentic, and there's really no media left anymore to kind of say that you're not. So now you are what you say you are. And so it's kind of puts the onus on the brand to show up and say, look, no, we are what we say we are. And here's our story, and here's our heritage, and here's sort of our values and what we stand for. And if you agree with those values, then you can reward us with your business. And if you don't, don't. So I feel like with what you're doing with the tag-along tours, but also even as you're sort of going through this pivot, I think if anything, what strikes me about this whole arc that you've been on, that I've been sort of watching from the outside, is it appears that you from the very first time you and I spoke, you struck me as an incredibly genuine, transparent, earnest person. We've seen lots of companies come and go over the years, and some have been able to figure it out and some have not. But I don't think I've ever seen anyone manage it the way you've managed it. So I would say, if anything, you've earned my respect because you've handled it with just a remarkable amount of class and transparency. I think there's very few people who wake up in the morning and say, I'm going to pull one over on people. I think there are probably some bad actors out there, but for the most part, at least in my career, when you see something that doesn't work out, it's usually because an entrepreneur had the best of intentions and just wasn't able to pull it off. And that sucks. I mean, that sucks for everybody, especially the entrepreneur. But what you've done, I think, by giving people the option to figure out if they want to go forward, by helping to complete those orders, and then really the transparency with which you've sort of managed this process, to me, has been very admirable.
Thank you.
What's the feedback been like from the community as you've kind of navigated this?
Humbling. Actually gave me the reason to, pull my boots back on. It really did. Comes back to that, I think, a little bit, that it is not what you are, it's who you are. And when, who are you really? I mean, was this just all a great big, what was it? People I've never met have said, good on you. Just whatever we can do brings you to tears.
So that's within the EarthCruiser community, but also outside of it. And
people I've met, yeah. EarthCruiser community has been phenomenal. They've been fabulous.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember in some of your posts kind of coming out of this, you've been very complimentary of Bend. How has the community managed and worked on this? How have they reacted to it?
Oh, I'd say generally good. I mean, all right, I'll tell you a quick story. Not long after we built that Hummer, we invited, because we started to work with some stuff with Rivian, not Rivian directly, but we had a Rivian there. We're planning, we'd put a camper on a Rivian, not directly with Rivian. Anyway, so we invited some of the Rivian club to come and have a look at this thing that we were doing. There's a Rivian club in Bend. Not long after we had put out that we're closing the factory, as in Bend, there's a pub just around every corner. And so Michelle and I were sitting outside, and we were just talking, and I had my EarthCruiser shirt on, and this woman come up that I've never seen before. And she said, oh, look, I really wanted to get to that Rivian thing, but I couldn't get there. We're really sorry that you're closing your factory here, but we just think you're great. And everything you've done here has been fantastic. That's huge. The fact that people made the effort, I've never gone out of my way to look for it, ever. It's not who I am, but it was just really terrific. And I'll go back to, again, why I think small companies just need to be supported. Because if you give a kid a job in your hometown, you are doing a whole lot for your hometown in ways that you may not even realize, may not even know. And I think it goes back to what you're talking about with the media, that just keeping it real. I mean, influencers are great and they do a terrific job, I'm sure, but they're not the gatekeepers, and they become the gatekeepers. The vested interest is different. You've started and you have your company as being an interest in telling the truth. So you are doing the right thing by your clients and you're doing the right thing by their customers. The roles of maybe gatekeeper is the wrong word, but definitely the voice needs to be spoken. We can't lose it. It's so important. Supporting local print media. I think it's really important. I may be really dumb about it, but I just think it's really important.
Now more than ever, my friend. There is a real hole that we need to keep filled. I agree.
And so if there's the opportunity to buy an ad, buy an ad. Once they go, they don't come back.
Right.
And we lose a whole crop of people who want to be journalists, and we want people to be journalists. We want that.
We need storytellers.
Absolutely. We want that. And it starts with us.
As we kind of wind up here, one of the questions I did want to ask you is for people listening to this. You've just gone through one of the hardest things an entrepreneur can go through. That is a tough road to walk. So if there's someone listening to this episode and they're facing one of those kind of fork in the road moments and, hey, my dream is not going the way I thought it was going to go and I'm going to have to make some tough decisions in business and life, what would you say to them?
Prefer to be able to answer that question in a little while's time when I feel that we are on more of a solid footing, but we are definitely get there. And it's the people you have around you, whether it be your partner or your gym buddies, whoever it is, talk to them. A terrible mistake that I made was not talk to anybody because I was dreadfully embarrassed. And that was a terrible mistake. Everybody says it, easy to say it, harder to do it, but just find someone to talk to, particularly if it's your spouse and if they've been in, because if they, for better or worse, they've been on this road with you for good and the bad. And so they feel it and they may not necessarily know what to say. They can see you're hurting, but they don't know what the answer is. And the chances are good if things are being good for a little while, you've enjoyed providing some good times. And when those good times aren't there anymore, that hurts too. Nobody wants to say, I'm sorry, we can't do that anymore. It's hard. So nobody wants to feel that. There is a lot of truth to say that all things do change. You do move from that spot. So just find some people to talk to and you'd be surprised how much they want to listen. They don't have to have the answer. Just talk. Just don't hold it back. Just talk and it might do you the world of good. It did me the world of good. And I made a terrible mistake of not doing it enough and soon enough because I didn't really think anybody cared until I find out a lot of people care. They really do.
That's good advice. Thank you. If people want to learn more about what you're up to now and where EarthCruiser is going, and maybe they want to look into a tag-along tour or a mod or a Terra Nova, where do they go and what do they do?
EarthCruiser.com. So we're still here. I really appreciate your time, Dan. It means so well to us. Thank you.
Absolutely. And Lance, I appreciate your honesty and your candor. We live in a culture right now where everybody wants to talk about entrepreneurship, and especially all like the Silicon Valley stuff. And everyone wants to tell the story about the guy with the idea that he sold for $1 billion. But I think this is real. And I think this is what entrepreneurship actually looks like. And I really respect and admire what you're doing.
No, I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming back on, Lance, with EarthCruiser, and really appreciate your time. That wraps up this episode of Only the Strong Survive. If you enjoyed the conversation, please hit subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who might need to hear that it's okay to change directions sometimes. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you down the road.